Devastation in California. At least 50 people are dead this morning. Hundreds of others are missing from wildfires across the state. A new fire has erupted overnight, and the National Guard is now helping in the search for victims. Joining me right now is California Congressman John Garamendi. Congressman, it's good to see you again. Welcome back. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
What a terrible story. Tell us what you see in California in terms of the impact of these wildfires as we really pray for the victims there this morning.
Well, we certainly have lost numerous, probably well over 50 people now. We're not exactly sure. 100 missing, almost 200 missing across the state. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And this is not the first fire. This set of fires is actually the fourth of the year. Major fires all across the state, north and south. We're in a very, very different period of time. This global climate change, it's much harder. The fire season now is year-round, 365 days in Southern California, almost that same length in Northern California. And our communities are in areas that are vulnerable. The Paradise community has had fires nearby, never took out of the town, but this is a town of 26,000 people that is essentially wiped off the map. It is a horrible situation, tragic in so many ways.
The president approved this major disaster declaration for California,
exactly,
responding to alleviate some of the incredible suffering. Were you happy with the disaster declaration and the money going to California, sir?
Oh, absolutely. We needed that. We're pleased the president did that. He played a little, I guess, a little game ahead of that was, I think, unnecessary and was heartless in many ways. But nonetheless, that disaster declaration does provide assistance for those people that have been totally burned out of their homes or their homes destroyed. Gives them a little bit of money to get back on their feet. But this is going to take a long time to recover in these areas. And when we do recover, we're going to have to build our communities resilient and resistance to fires. So a lot of things need to be done differently. And one example, and this is not just a California problem, we're going to see these kinds of emergencies and disasters, whether it's a hurricane or tornado or a fire or earthquake, we're going to have to make sure that we have really solid evacuation plans. And as we know, in the case of Paradise, the evacuation plan, as good as it may have been, did not take into account that there were just two roads out of town, both of them narrow mountain roads. And so we have to consider that. Actually, we have some legislation in to deal with these evacuation situations.
Just terrible. And the money federal money going to the state is going to include crisis counseling, housing, unemployment assistance, legal services, according to Jerry Brown. The declaration also providing public assistance to help state, tribal, and local governments with ongoing emergency response. Let me move over to GOP leadership and leadership in general with the new Congressman. Reports indicate current House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy will become the new Minority Leader when Republicans vote today. And, of course, there's a lot of expectation Nancy Pelosi becomes the Speaker. Is that what you're expecting on both ends?
I believe that to be exactly the case. McCarthy will be voting. The votes today will include those members that are not going to be here in the future. On the House side, the voting will be only by the new members in the 116th Congress. So that'll take place after Thanksgiving. And I believe firmly that Nancy Pelosi will become Speaker once again. And I think that's appropriate. She's done a remarkable job over all these years. Certainly pilloried by the Republicans in every election, but nonetheless, she's hung in there and has led us to a very, very substantial victory.
And yet there's a lot of pushback on her. A lot of people say they don't want her back at the gavel. Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan is one of them. I spoke with him right before the midterm elections, and here's what he said about the race for House Speaker on the Dem side. Listen to this. After the 2016 election, you wanted to unseat Nancy Pelosi to become Speaker of the House. Are you running for Speaker of the House this time?
We got a couple more days. There are a number of candidates that are having conversations that are talking about running. I will say it's not going to be a coronation. Somebody is going to run for leadership. I think it's important that we have this discussion and have this conversation. I think the American people want to change. I think a lot of Democrats want to change. And so we're going to have that discussion starting on Wednesday. And let's hope we're having a conversation about Speaker of the House and not leader of the minority party in Congress. But there's a lot of conversations happening right now.
So just to be clear, Congressman, you said it's appropriate for her to be Speaker. Does that mean you're going to vote for Nancy Pelosi?
Yes, I am. Absolutely, I am. I've known her for about 35 years. She's a remarkable woman. She knows the Congress better than anybody else. She knows how to get policies done. You take a look at the major policies that have occurred over the last decade. She has been there to make it happen. And those are things that the American public wants, everything from particularly the Affordable Care Act, a whole series of issues having to do with infrastructure. So, yes, she'll get elected. Tim's a great person. But right now, and I talked to probably more than 150 members of Congress yesterday, many of the new people, there really is nobody that has stepped forward and put themselves up as a candidate as of this moment.
Well, there you go.
Perhaps they will in the next few hours. We'll see.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, meanwhile, recently wrote an op-ed titled, "Will Dems Work With Us?" or simply put partisan politics ahead of the country. In it, he comments on Democrats writing this, Congressman, will they choose to go it alone and simply make political points, or will they choose to work together and actually make a difference? So what legislation can a Democratic House pass that will succeed in a Republican-controlled Senate, in your view, Congressman?
Well, certainly let's talk about health care. Democrats have been talking a long time about the Affordable Care Act, and particularly about the provision in it about everyone being able to get insurance regardless of pre-existing conditions. The Republicans jumped on that issue in a positive way in the campaign. So let's make that a very clear law that every insurance company, every insurance policy in the United States cannot deny a person insurance or be very costly if they have a pre-existing condition. Democrats and Republicans agree on that. And infrastructure is another major issue. The president talked about infrastructure. We can do that. We certainly have a need for it. All kinds of infrastructure. I talked a moment ago about emergency evacuation routes. Certainly we have to deal, again, in rural areas such as Paradise. We need broadband. We need to be able to communicate in rural areas of America, whether you're in the Midwest or California. You cannot get good cellular service. In some cases, you can't get it at all.
Congressman, let me ask you, this president has had, obviously, a business-friendly approach to the economy with his economic proposals and plans, tax cut plan, rolling back regulation. Are you expecting this new Congress to try to reverse that? For example, try to stop Tax Cuts 2.0, or perhaps bring in pharmaceutical CEOs to get them on, in hearings to get them to lower drug prices? Are you expecting a less business-friendly approach?
Well, I don't think there's anything business-friendly about the extraordinary cost of drugs in America compared to the rest of the world. Absolutely, the Democrats are going to run that issue.
Well, the president has also tried to get prices down, to be fair.
That's correct.
That was one of his priorities.
Absolutely true. That's true. But the reality is there's no reason for those extraordinary drug prices other than the ability of these companies to...
So you're going to get the CEOs in Washington in hearings then?
Well, I'm sure they'll be in for hearings, but that's not the point. The point is, can we do legislation to reduce drug prices? And certainly the Democrats want to do that. It's one of the things that we campaigned on throughout the election. So we'll do that for sure. But there are many other things that we must do. We spoke a moment ago about infrastructure. We have to do that. We know that job training is critically important. So education at all levels, and particularly re-education programs.
All right, we'll leave it there. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much. John
Thanks,
Garamendi
Maria.
joining us this morning.